Think about the exact moment you realize you just said something slightly awkward in a group of people, or when you accidentally trip in a crowded public space. In a fraction of a second, before logic or reason can even kick in, your face flushes with a burning heat, your stomach ties itself into a cold, heavy knot, and your heart rate violently spikes. You are standing in a perfectly safe environment, surrounded by civilized humans, wearing comfortable clothes, and facing absolutely zero physical threats. Yet, your nervous system is behaving exactly as if a starving predator has just locked eyes with you in the wild. It is a profoundly bizarre paradox when you really think about it. Why does the human body react to the simple, harmless gaze of other people with the exact same cascade of survival chemicals that it once used to run for its life? You are in no danger of being eaten, yet your brain is screaming that you are in mortal peril. But the weirdest part is that this suffocating feeling, this invisible prison we call social anxiety, is not a modern disease, a personal flaw, or a glitch in your biology. To understand how this happened, you need to imagine a world where other people's opinions were literally a matter of life and death, a world where being a little bit awkward did not mean eating lunch alone, but meant being left to the wolves. Only this story did not start as a curse. It started as the most brilliant and tragic biological accident in the history of our species. Picture the Earth roughly 300,000 years ago. It was an unforgiving, brutal landscape where the night was pitch black, the winters were merciless, and the wilderness was teeming with creatures stronger, faster, and deadlier than we were. Early humans were slow. We had no sharp claws to fight with, no thick fur to protect us from the freezing wind, and no venom to defend ourselves, making us objectively one of the weakest and most vulnerable animals on the plains. Surviving alone was not just difficult, it was mathematically impossible. If you wandered away from the fire, you died. If you broke an ankle and had no one to share their scavenged food with you, you died. Our only evolutionary superpower, the single weapon that allowed us to conquer this planet, was the tribe. If you enjoy discovering the hidden, ancient ghosts that still haunt human behavior today, take a second to subscribe to the channel, because we are diving deep into the shadows of the mind. The absolute necessity of the tribe meant that evolution had to engineer a foolproof way to force humans to stay together, to share, to cooperate, and, most importantly, to care deeply about their status within the group. And the mechanism evolution chose to achieve this was pain. Before this shift, pain was purely physical, a biological alarm telling an animal to pull its paw out of the fire or to limp on a broken leg to avoid further tissue damage. But as human survival became entirely dependent on social connection, the brain did something completely unexpected and revolutionary. It hijacked the ancient physical pain matrix and rewired it to respond to social threats. This detail seems small, but it fundamentally changed everything about what it means to be human. Suddenly, making a mistake that angered the elders, stealing food, or doing something that made the tribe turn their backs on you did not just feel bad emotionally. It registered in the brain as actual, physical agony. If you look at functional MRI scans of the modern human brain today, you will see something astonishing. The exact same neural regions that light up when you burn your skin with a hot cup of coffee, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex, also violently light up when you experience social rejection. The sting of being left out, the burning shame of public humiliation, the sharp ache of a breakup. Your brain processes all of it as physical tissue damage. Evolution effectively made social isolation hurt just as much as a broken bone, because back in the Paleolithic world, social isolation was a death sentence. Being kicked out of the cave meant facing the darkness alone. So, to prevent us from ever being exiled, our DNA developed a hypersensitive social radar, a constant, buzzing hypervigilance designed to read the mood of the room. We began to unconsciously scan the faces around us, looking for the slightest micro-expressions of disgust, anger, or disappointment in our tribe mates. We learned to obsess over our reputation, to share food even when we were hungry, and to conform to the rules of the group, not out of pure moral goodness, but out of a terrifying, ingrained biological fear of abandonment. But this still doesn't explain how a brilliant survival mechanism turned into the crippling modern phenomenon of social anxiety. And this is where the past begins to crash violently into modern life. For hundreds of thousands of years, this social alarm system worked perfectly because early humans lived in small, tight-knit bands of about 50 to 150 people. Your brain was designed to track the opinions of a very limited number of individuals, people you knew intimately, people you hunted with, people whose survival was tied directly to yours. If someone in your tribe gave you a weird look, your internal alarm would go off. You would fix the problem, apologize, share some meat, and the alarm would turn off. The system was balanced. But the world changed absurdly fast. We traded the African savanna for concrete jungles, hunting parties for corporate offices, and small campfires for glowing smartphone screens. We built a society where we are suddenly surrounded by thousands, sometimes millions, of strangers every single day. We walk through crowded malls, sit in massive lecture halls, and post pictures of ourselves on the internet, exposing our faces to the judgment of a global audience. The problem is that the organic body and the human brain still carry the exact same cave-dwelling survival marks. The Paleolithic hardware inside your skull does not understand that the guy glaring at you in traffic has no actual power over your survival. It does not know that the coworker who gave you a dry, passive-aggressive response in an email cannot banish you to the wilderness. It does not comprehend that a lack of likes on a photo will not lead to you starving in the snow. To your primitive amygdala, any sign of social disapproval from anyone, anywhere, is a literal signal of impending death. And that is the tragic accident of our evolution. The excess of social data in the modern world constantly trips our ancient exile alarm, flooding our nervous system with cortisol and adrenaline over things that do not actually matter. We overthink casual conversations while lying in bed at night, sweating over a slightly awkward joke we made 5 years ago. We panic before walking into a party, convinced that everyone is judging our clothes, our posture, our voice. We freeze before speaking up in a meeting, our heart racing because our brain is convinced that saying the wrong thing will get us kicked out of the tribe entirely. We are exhausted, running a heavy, outdated survival program in a world that no longer requires it. This evolutionary mismatch has turned a vital adaptation into an invisible cage. It drives the chronic social anxiety that makes us isolate ourselves, which is deeply ironic, because the very mechanism designed to keep us connected is now making us too terrified to interact. We often feel painfully disconnected from others, even when we are physically surrounded by hundreds of perfectly happy-looking people, simply because our threat-reading instincts are fried, overloaded by a constant barrage of meaningless social cues. But when you strip away the layers of technology, modern civility, and corporate expectations, this whole story reveals a crushing and deeply moving truth about our nature. Social anxiety is not a sign that you are weak, broken, or fundamentally flawed. It is not an enemy to be hated. It is the purest confession of our gigantic fragility in the face of the universe. It is the ghost of a desperate ancestor living inside your chest, fiercely trying to protect you from the cold, begging you to stay safe, begging you to belong. We care so much about what others think because our species only survived the darkness of the ancient world by holding on to each other. The next time you are standing in front of a mirror, adjusting your clothes, feeling that familiar knot of nervous tension in your stomach before stepping out the door, pay close attention to that feeling. Remember that your fear of being judged is just your biology echoing the greatest and most desperate survival strategy ever invented. We are terrified of each other because, in the end, we absolutely need each other.